Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to today's event. I'm Jason Gumpert from MS Dynamics World, and I'm joined by Russell Goebel, Director of Industry Solutions at IBIS Inc., a Sonata software company. Russell is here today for a new event all about driving better margins with advanced supply chain software for Dynamics AX. As we get started, please know that you can ask questions using the Q&A block that you should see to the right of the main presentation area. You can ask those anytime. I know Russell will be leaving time at the end for questions. And without further delay, please allow me to welcome Russell Goebel to start things off.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jason. Some of you may know me. My name is Russell Goebel. I'm the Director of Industry Solutions at IBIS. We have a ISV solution called Advanced Supply Chain Software that's been in the market now for about 4 years. And that's the focus of our presentation today. So IBIS, with our Advanced Supply Chain Software, has been part of the Microsoft Strategic ISV program for a few years now. What this means is that we are mandated by Microsoft to support the AX code base as it evolves and updates. So you get the peace of mind that any incompatibility or compatibility with Core AX updates will be handled as part of our normal product lifecycle and support. As part of this program, we have been part of the AX7 evolution since the very first commercial technical preview, and have been an AppSource app since launch. So you'll see there that's a screenshot of our AppSource listing. We are AX7 ready. So if you go into the AppSource and search under Dynamics AX and the distribution, our solution will come up. As an AppSource solution, not only do we have a software product that enhances Dynamics AX, we also have packaged implementation offering that includes key distribution business processes and task guide recordings using that wonderful AX7 task recorder and business process modeler. So when implementing Dynamics AX with Advanced Supply Chain Software, or ASCS, these processes will be ready to go on day one of the lifecycle service with lifecycle services as you begin your analysis of how the customer's 2B system will operate. So ASCS has been in the market for around 4 years now, since the AX 2012 R2W timeframe. We have robust solutions in both 2012 R2 as well as R3, as well as in the new Dynamics AX, which I'll spend some time in shortly. It's important to understand the nature of our solution. We have not built an external app that requires interfacing or synchronization, but rather we simply build on, we extend and enhance the core Dynamics AX application. So it's the same database, often the same tables, same forms from Core AX that we think work better and more powerful now with ASCS installed. So we sit in that the code layers of AX now, and AX in the new Dynamics AX will be moving that layered code to the extension model as part of the new platform technology that's with AX, what we call AX7 internally, but it's now the new Dynamics AX or Dynamics 365. So ASCS, part of that business process approach that we have with ASCS is a keen focus on margins and profitability, which are often quite narrow in the distribution world and require amazing discipline to grow and remain profitable in a changing world. So when we talk about plan to profit, what it means is to use historical information, whether it's historical sales or even lost sales, to go to market with better promotions and pricing, often in coordination with your vendor, especially when you're a distributor or a retailer, and B, have a system that can capture and execute the end-to-end processes of that entire order-to-cash story beyond just billing the customer. If you're a distributor or a retailer, you're often getting trade allowances, supplier supports, or chargebacks from your vendors as you sell and promote items. While getting your money from your customer is vital, is obviously the foundation in that story, you also have to account for deductions from them, but then also you have to reclaim the money often from your vendors when the trade allowance or promotional support is in play. ASCS has extended the rebate infrastructure in AX to support these end-to-end processes. Moreover, we have improved margin estimation from the beginning of the quote and order processes so you can control your sales activities and anticipate the true cost of alternative sourcing routines and fulfillment scenarios ahead of time, and not be surprised if margins eroded after you collected them of all the money. You'll actually anticipate this at the beginning. So with that in mind, let's now go through a demonstration of what I'm talking about here. I'm going to hop out into the new Dynamics AX. So I am in AX7. This is actually an update 1 version of AX7. I'm in here as the user Kevin. So I'm going to start out in the sales order processing and inquiry workspace. And you'll see we've added a few things to this. So one thing that we've added is a filtered list of orders based on our stock availability status codes that we have. So basically, whenever you input a sales line and save it, we will actually go out there and do a stock check. In some cases, that's based on what's the reservation logic in play, but other times it's just straight, do I have the inventory available or not? And then we'll capture that, on each sales line. And then on the workspace, you can actually see the filtered views of each one of those. So if I can see what orders are technically considered back ordered versus inventory allocated, so the lines have all been reserved and could be reserved to warehouse or released to warehouse. So that's what some of the things we've done here on the workspace. And now when I'm going to go into all sales orders. And you'll see also some of the color codes there that really actually relate to our stock availability statuses. So these headlights on each one of these sales orders, again, this is the sales order list page, all tie back to our stock statuses. So and what the stock statuses really represent, so inventory allocated means I've got sales lines that have actually been reserved physical, so the inventory is allocated, it's ready to be released to warehouse for pick, pack, and ship. If it's insufficient stock, that's pretty self-explanatory. I've done an inventory check. I don't have enough on hand. And so I've got to figure out some way. You've got to go create the back order or let planning go and handle that. Inventory available usually means I have reservation turned off, automatic reservation turned off anyway, but I've done a real-time check. Do I have the inventory available at that site and warehouse? And if yes, it'll give me that status. Now, the flip side of that means is that 5 minutes from now, it could be gone. So you got to decide what to do when it's shown as available. Back-ordered and on time, really actually you leverage the reservation logic in AX to actually reserve the inbound inventory. So I don't actually physically have it today, but I do have the orders in the system to actually reserve against. So I can allocate that inbound inventory, to my orders. And what the difference between on-time and back-ordered means is on-time means I've actually got visibility to the delivery date of that inbound receipt, and I'm comparing that to my requested ship date on my order. And if the delivery date is before the requested ship date, then that means it's on time for me to ship to. It's going to be on time for me to ship to the customer. Back-ordered basically means the same thing, except that the delivery date check means it's going to arrive late to the customer based on when they ask for it. So that's really the difference there. But the idea here is this is the way I can give quick reporting to my customers on what's the status of my order, or where does it stand as I go through line by line. So now I'm going to create a new sales order. And again, one thing I keep want to be clear on is that we haven't really truly altered at a fundamental level how AX works, but we're just trying to improve that strong foundation that's there. One of those foundational components is that we have keyword searches now as of 2012 R3, and obviously also in AX7, is we can search across multiple fields in both for customers and for products. And that's a very powerful little search engine. However, it doesn't really search on all the pieces of data that you want to search on when you're trying to find a customer or product. So that's where we've enhanced that search string. So for example, in standard AX, I can't search on the contact information associated with a customer. So we've added that ability to do that. So I go in here and I type in Benjamin and hit tab. Since I only have one Benjamin actually in my system, it finds the customer matching that contact information and puts that in there. And it'll be the same story if I put in the contact phone number or the address. It would actually reconcile to the customer account. And if I had more than one Benjamin in the system, then it would bring up all the different customers that I could choose from there. So that's one of the things that we've enhanced from a customer search perspective. And obviously on the Create Sales Order form, you can go and do other things. So for example, if I had, if this was a consignment sales order, then I would turn that on here. That's more functionality that we've added to the system. Another thing we've also done is we can control, we can force you to put in a customer requisition or customer reference number if you require that, that reference PO number from your customer system. We can actually control we'll hold up actually confirmation of the order if that information is not filled in. So now I'm going to create a new order. Now instead of clicking OK, which would just launch me into a standard sales order with the header already set, I'm actually going to click Create Lines. and that's going to take me into, it's going to create the, I got to get rid of the item list first. It's going to actually create the sales order header in the background, then launch the create lines form, which is a standard AX form, but you can see we've added a new tab for that search. So the beauty of this is using that keyword search, but it's using it as I type. So if I type speakers, of course I've got Contoso data here, so it's going to find all the products that match speakers. You'll see it's actually it's searching as I type, and it'll show me all the products that I have. Now if I just hit tab once, it goes me straight into the sales quantity field, and I can go here and I can start putting in a quantity. Now, the way this works is in this top grid, it's going to, it's just going to look for the inventory, or it's just going to apply that quantity to the primary warehouse associated with my customer. But I can go down below and select other warehouses if if it doesn't matter where I can ship from. So that's the nice thing about this form. The idea behind this form really is search on the product, tab, input the quantity, hit apply, it updates the sales order, and then takes you back to start the search over again. So it's search, quantity, apply, rinse, wash, repeat. So that's really the idea on how you can just do quick order entry, but also have visibility into where the inventory is at other warehouses. Likewise, we have a setting in the system where we can mark an item as obsolete, and that would show up here. Obsolete really means that it's not been stopped. You can still sell it if you have inventory. However, it actually alerts the CSR that the item is considered obsolete for you, and then you have a business process wrapped around what you do with it. Either you're going to try to sell that obsolete item, perhaps you've incentivized your salespeople to actually get that inventory out, and they can sell it at a discount. Or perhaps if it's obsolete, you're going to go up here and look for a substitute. So we have a little checkbox that would show up here if there was a substitution opportunity, and that would take me into the upsell and cross-sell items form to choose an alternate or a substitute item. So that's kind of how the idea behind this form, and you'll notice I can launch into this form directly if this is the form I'm going to live in from order entry. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in 500 and update the order with that. Now it added the line. Now this is our header information that's up here. I'm actually going to close that, but you can see we have our consignment information as well as the sales total information that you don't have to actually drill for. So it came up obviously because I didn't really select a warehouse that had the inventory. It shows up as insufficient stock. So now I put this line in. I talked to the customer. The customer says, you know what? I can't wait on the back order. I'm just going to call Amazon or I'm going to call somebody else. So they say, I got other stuff I want to order from you, but I don't need this product right now. I'll go to get it from somewhere else. So that's a sale you're going to lose. So if I go and remove this line, we've enabled the system to actually capture why you lost that sale. So I've got a reason code in here. These are user-defined reason codes, and I'm going to say I had it for insufficient stock. So when I lose that sale and I say no stock, I'm going to click OK. It's going to delete the line, and then it's going to show up over in the voided sales order inquiry, and I'm going to capture on that. In that inquiry, I'm going to capture, if I lost the entire order or I lost the line, why did I actually lose that sale? And of course, how much did I lose from a standpoint of both quantity and dollar amount? And we can do that either if I'm deleting an order or I'm just canceling the order. And canceling an AX means I keep the record, but it removes the inventory transactions behind it, so that my planning is not trying to fulfill it. So the really nice part about that is we capture the lost sales, and you make a decision on what you want to do next with that. If you're losing sales because insufficient stock, then you might want to change your forecast or your stocking routines, with that customer. Or you actually, if you're losing sales because of the price, you need to analyze your pricing promotions, right? So that's the key part of that is we capture all that information and you decide what to do with it. All right, so now I'm going to go add some more items to the system here. So I'm going to type smartphone, and it should find one item. I only have one smartphone in my system. Now, what did it search on when I type smartphone? It actually searched on the long product description in AX. So that's another example where AX has this keyword search that's very nice, but it doesn't search on everything it needs to search on. One of those things is the long product description on the item record. So what I'm talking about here is this description right here. And obviously I was being a little punchy when I typed that in, but ultimately the description is actually, that's a key part of the item makeup The standard AX doesn't search on that. We search on that. We also search on other vital things that are going to come up at order entry. We can search on both the customer part number as well as the vendor part number. We can likewise search on things like barcode and G10 and the manufacturer and stuff like that. So we've added a lot to the search story at order entry. All right, so I saved that line. It applied a unit price. Obviously, I have inventory in stock, so it's gone ahead and allocated that. So let's take a look at some of the other things that we've got going on here. So when I hit sales order line, I go to price details. This tells me, of course, the details of how my pricing got applied. So one of the things you'll notice here is we have this unit price calculation. That's another big thing that we've added to the system is that standard AX, when you put in a sales price trade agreement in AX, you just have to basically put in for a single item, for the customer groupings and whatnot, and then you just got to put the price in manually. How you arrive at that price is figured out offline. So we've added the ability to actually bake in within the ERP that sales price methodology. So if you're building up from a basis, what we call a price basis, and that basis may be some sort of cost, such as a market cost, which is something we've added to the system. It represents usually your vendor list price. You may never actually pay that, but you still want to actually peg your margins against it. Or average landed cost, that's another thing we've added where we will actually calculate your average landed cost for a period. And as your average landed costs change, your pricing automatically updates based on that basis change, and then the methodology just gets applied at order entry based on the time period that it's relevant. So you're not having to redo your pricing every time your pricing changes. Other forms of the basis there we have the default item cost or the standard cost. We can also do the last purchase price if you don't mind high variability. And then we can actually mark down from list as well. So sales price is another basis there. But it's a standard formula that you create, you give it a name, and then you associate it with the trade agreement. So if I'm looking down in trade agreements here, my price trade agreement has this price formula ID. So that's actually the methodology I use. The other really powerful thing of this is that I can create trade agreements for groups of items. So standard AX, you have to create a single trade agreement for each item, and then of course each customer account relation that you're worried about there. We can actually do that by an item group. So one sales price trade agreement for an item group using a price formula. The basis is unique by item, but the sales price methodology is uniform across that group of items. So that's a really powerful way, not just to ease your sales price maintenance, but also in terms of protecting your margins. So when your costs change and your costs get updated in the system, you're not having to go redo your pricing or worry about figuring out how your margins are eroding after the fact because your costs were creeping up. So that's some of the things we've added to the price details form here. You'll see we have other things in the wake up of the price. We can actually have line discounts that have brackets either by quantity. Standard AX does it by quantity. We can do it by dollar amount or currency amount, as well as things like weight if you're trying to worry about freight breaks and things like that. So we've done quite a bit on the pricing front. So I'm going to close that and I'm going to add another line. And this one is item 02, and I'm going to do, we're going to do 5. All right, so that's going to allocate that, and you'll also see the margin alerts are getting applied, and we have some extra things to say about margin alerts I'll discuss in a minute. So one other thing we've done, so I've entered in a couple of lines here. Now I want to test, see, the multi-line discount. Do I qualify for a multi-line discount? Let's find that out. So I'm going to hit calculation. That's going to actually see if I qualify for a multi-line discount. And I do. And you'll see what it actually did is I didn't really qualify for a multi-line discount, but I actually qualified for a free good, a promotional item. So we've added the ability to do BOGOs or buy one, get one free functionality to the multi-line discounts in standard AX. So I can actually, and the BOGOs are quite elegant in the way you do it. It doesn't have to be buy one, get one free. It can be buy 10, get a different product for free. Buy 10, get a different product for a different price. And I can even buy 10 and get 3 products for free. Whatever you like there. So, and then we can actually do it to where I qualify a group of items qualify for the multi-line discount as long as one of the lines you have to be buying at least item X in order to get item Y for free. So there's a lot of business logic there. And you'll also notice we'll call out the item that's a promotional item, so you can easily denote which items the customer actually asked for versus which items we gave away as part of a promotion. Okay? So I've done that. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to confirm my sales order. Now that calculation I just went through, I did it manually just for the sake of the demo, but usually it'll actually do that calculation both a confirmation, or you can run a batch job that runs overnight if you've got electronic orders coming in and that sort of thing. So I'm going to confirm the order. Now typically what you're going to do next is you're going to go through pick, pack, and ship because everything is allocated. And I would assume you're going to use the WMS logic and the TMS logic that's in AX. We're going to skip that right now just because for the sake of the demo, and we don't really change how that functions in Core AX. So, but just for this sake of this particular demo, I'm going to go ahead and skip to invoice because I want to kind of show what happens next. So I'm going to invoice all of this quantity. Click OK. So now I'm going to actually, I'm pick, packing, shipping the and invoicing the lines of this order. And what is my message detail? Well, one, I think I've got a credit issue, of course. But the other thing is you'll notice it processed a rebate. Now, what kind of rebate was this? This is actually a vendor rebate that got processed. This is a vendor rebate or a rebate claim that actually was processed based on what I sell, not based on what I buy. So this is a scenario where we have what we call a sales program, and that sales program allows me to associate vendor rebate agreements or whether we call them allowances, supplier supports, chargebacks. The nomenclature can change from company to company, but the basic idea is I'm a distributor or a retailer going to market with a manufacturer's product, and they want to help me on that promotion of those products, but I have to achieve certain sales numbers in order to get that. So StandardX has nothing for that business scenario from the context of the distributor or the retailer. So what we've done is we've leveraged the rebate infrastructure, and if I go into rebate claims in procurement and scroll down to the bottom here, you'll see I have these chargebacks. So these are rebates a rebate type that we've added called chargeback, and it's a rebate that was generated based on what I sold. So it's actually, if you look at the rebate agreement, you'll have the calculation of the rebate as you would normally expect, but it's actually based on my sales order quantity. However, it's a rebate claim against my vendor, right? So again, this is a very powerful and necessary business function for distributors and a lot of retailers as well. We have different types of rebate agreements that function in a similar fashion that are really driven by quotas I hit in my sales activity for my manufacturers or my vendors' products. So this was a chargeback. This was essentially a direct subsidy of my promotional efforts, under a sales program, which is what this is right here. And then also we have cost deviations as well as margin guarantee. So if my vendor is guaranteeing me a certain cost level with the full knowledge that my costs may fluctuate over a period of time, as long as I'm meeting certain sales numbers, they'll true me up at the end of that period and try to get my cost of goods sold back down to the level I wanted it to be at, or I agreed to it with my vendor. Likewise, on the margin guarantee, same story, except that they're guaranteeing me a certain margin based on my sales price minus my cost price, to my vendor. And so there's some other things that we have, but these are all rebates driven by sales quotas I have, but they drive the vendor rebate claims. So that's really kind of an end-to-end scenario here. And getting back to our plan to profit story there is that collecting the money from my customer is part one, collecting the money from my vendor is part two. Once I've done that, then my margins, my true margins, are realized against that sales activity. And then we capture that in a report that we call cost to serve that shows you really the cost it took to get that customer's business. It's not a cost from an accounting perspective, but it really is a cost of, I'm only winning this customer's business if I discount my product by a lot. That's valuable information. Or if I'm winning this customer's business, then I'm paying out a lot of commissions. Is the cost to serve that customer worth it? That sort of thing. So those are things that we capture after the fact, after we process all these orders. All right, so that's a quick demonstration of just some of our sales order logic. We have quite a lot more that we have in our solution, and that's what I'll talk about right now. Okay, so so our solution is called Advanced Supply Chain Software. It is a suite of 4 individually licensed modules. Advanced revenue management is really our pricing and promotions and rebate solutions. So that's where all of our vendor rebate functionality that I just went through, our sales pricing build up and markdown methodology, we have that in there. And I should note that the sales price logic also fits for not just standard A, what we call standard AX for the back office. It actually also works for call center and for retail as well. Cost to serve management, you see that. And then we've got a lot of things around just better price grouping logic. Standard AX, one of the limitations with standard AX price groups is it's really just one price group for the customer, one price group for the item. And then by function. What we allow you to do is you can actually have multiple price groups for both customers and items. So if you want to classify your customers by, say, a region, like southern customers, or you want to classify them by their strategic customers, or they're a channel like retail or internet customer. You can do that and have these different classifications of the customers. And if each classification might drive pricing, we can support that. So we can allow you to have multiple price groups associated with the customer. Same story on the item. You may have a price grouping for the vendor line. You may have a different price grouping for for the type of item it is. Or the seasonal item, what have you. So you can have different groupings of these items, and each one can actually drive a trade agreement. And then what we do is we have a sales calculation group that allows you to actually create tiebreaker rules that tell you which trade agreement should get applied when multiple ones are valid. And then as part of that story, we have price group hierarchies that allows you to build a true pricing schema between your customer and item combinations on which trade agreement should take priority versus others. So if the high priority one is available, use it, but if there's not a trade agreement for that customer and item combination, go to the next customer and item combination and apply any trade agreements that may be available there. It really helps you, dictate that sales price search as it executes in sales. And advanced order management is our order management module around better order entry, better order processing, better order management. You'll see some of the things we have there is sales and quote and return workflows. Standard X has no sales workflows out of the box. We've taken the effort to actually build those for you, so you can have, and those workflows can be driven, conditionally from a conditional approval perspective and a delegation perspective based on not just the fields that are in the, the sales order and sales line tables, but also in, based on margin, based on my order hold logic, those sort of things. So we've done quite a bit there. Stock availability, color codes, that was part of our order management module, as well as, all of our advanced searching functionality. And then we can also do, we can have a hierarchy of warehouses to cycle through. So if the primary warehouse is out of inventory, cycle to the next warehouse in the hierarchy and use that instead. So we've done quite a bit on just how orders should move forward. On the inventory management module, that's really our module around inventory problems that have to do with how you manage your customers and your vendors. We're not fundamentally changing how the WMS or the TMS works. We're just really helping you have other business processes for managing inventory, particularly from the standpoint of allocation. So you'll see we have customer consignment inventory. We also have vendor managed inventory. We've created something called a sourcing matrix that allows you to set up alternate vendor rules that are kind of above and beyond just what's in item coverage, as well as automatic drop ships. So if I have a particular customer item combination, or perhaps a customer comes in and orders a very large quantity that I never keep in stock, then maybe I can automate the drop ship of that. And so that'll actually, the planning engine will even pick that up and generate POs accordingly. And then on the procurement management, and then I want to talk about allocations as well. So allocations in AX, of course, is the reservation logic. And the reservation logic works very well, except that unfortunately sometimes when you want to change reservations, that can be a bit of a painful and tedious process. So we've actually modified the solution so that you can be very smart about when reservations get applied, when the rules, what customers are you going to automatically allocate versus allocate later, as well as perhaps, allocating only in batch. So, run a batch job and it's going to say only allocate the orders that have a requested ship date of this, the next 7 days. So we allow you to really, change and have specific criteria on how it gets allocated. We've also got the ability to have customer allocation priorities. So you can say, if Walmart's one of your customers, they're priority one. So whenever I run that allocation logic, allocate to Walmart first. They get first crack at our inventory, and everyone else comes second, of course, based on delivery date as well. And then on top of that, we have what we call an allocation agreement, and that's where it's a better version of both forecasting and sales agreements, in that if you got a forecast from your customer and you trust it and they give it to you, Standard AX uses those forecasts very well from the planning engine perspective. What it doesn't do is that when the inventory gets fulfilled and comes into the warehouse, it just kind of gets received in the journal on hand and is available to all comers. There's no way to lock it down for that particular customer. That's where allocation agreements come in. And so when Walmart creates an allocation agreement that says, for this month, we're going to buy X. You go and plan for X. X gets received. It's automatically reserved to the allocation agreement. Then when the real orders come in, it automatically moves that reservation over to the real orders. And then we have some additional emergency rules that kind of allow you to, rob Peter to pay Paul. So a lot of logic around allocations. As I put it, I like to say we make automatic reservation your friend. In the last module, Advanced Procurement Management, we've spent a lot of time trying to enhance that. And so we've had landed costs in our solution for quite some time, and that's really about a better way to capture your costs by shipment across POs, and also segregate those costs and view those costs at the very end regarding, see what part of my costs are increasing, what's causing that? Is it because my vendor prices are going up? My freight costs are going up? So we've got some enhanced calculations that allow you to have visibility into that. And then we've done quite a bit on the other end of the equation from a distribution perspective, things like non-stock pricing, master catalog, and things like that. And I'm actually going to talk about that in just a minute. The one thing I want to highlight on this PowerPoint here is that everything you see that's in bold is actually our new functionality we've developed over the last year or so, that we developed on 2012, really to kind of meet the demands of existing 2012 customers and prospects. And then and everything that's not in bold, we also actually currently have live in AX7, and that's what I just went through the demo. Everything that's in bold has actually been migrated over to AX7. We're just in the final throes of trying to get that, get conflicts resolved, get some code refactoring done, and go through a full QA. So that part of the solution should be available in the next month or two. So that's part of our fall release. We'll have everything that we've ever developed for 2012 will also be live on AX7. Right now we do have an AX7 solution. It just has some of this, some of these features that are on the come. Okay, so the last thing I want to kind of close with before we get into Q&A is just talk about some enhanced distribution scenarios that we've taken a special effort to really meet. So one of those is I'll just call it the non-stock scenario. In the distribution world, people will call these non-stock items. Sometimes they're called specials. Sometimes they're X items. What have you. But ultimately, and it's important for the AX people to understand what I'm saying here. In AX, we have this concept of a stocked product on the model group. What that really does is it just turns on or turns off inventory transactions. In the case of non-stock items, in this scenario, in the real world, these are all items I need to have inventory for. I need to track inventory for. The difference is that stock items are things I'm going to forecast, things I'm going to have safety stock for, things I'm going to basically keep on the shelf for when orders come in. Non-stock items are things I'm really only going to ever buy or make when a customer actually asks for it, or I have a real demand out there. So what we've done is we've tried to unify that sourcing and buying routine so that it has a cohesive flow. And doesn't have sit off in silos of buying versus selling. So what we've done is we've linked the RFQ process to quoting and sales order processing, so that I get a quote, customer asks for a product that I don't normally keep in stock. Maybe I don't even actually have it as a real product in the system, and we've got some special logic around what we call item on the fly. But the ultimate idea here is that this is a product that they need. It's a product I have the ability to sell. I just don't keep it in stock. So I'm going to have to go individually source that product. And what happens a lot of times is that CSR or that salesperson is going to hop on the phone, either call the buyer or the buyer in their company, or get on the phone straight with the vendor and try to get a spot price and say, I've got this order of 100 for product X. What can you give me for that if I buy it today? And then we actually capture that in a quick RFQ that what allows you to put in both, the item being requested, and then also what is the spot price you may have been quoted over the phone. It will actually get captured in an RFQ record in standard AX, but we actually we streamline and limit the interaction you have to do with that RFQ as long as you're generating it from sales, and then we link that to the quote. And the beauty of it is that I don't create, RFQs, when they get accepted, create purchase orders. I don't want to create a purchase order until I win this sale. So what we've done here is, when I get that price, that cost price from the vendor, first thing I do is I may actually apply that as a new basis and execute my price formula that I showed you earlier, or or I should say, when I win that quote, that's when our magic happens. Is actually I confirm the quote. It will actually accept the RFQ and create the purchase order. It will likewise create the sales order, and then it will actually link that accepted purchase order to the sales order so that the costing and inventory requirements are all linked together. But again, none of that happens until you actually win the quote. All of these things are things you can execute individually and kind of in a silo in AX, but they don't have that cohesive end-to-end linkage that actually makes sure the costs flow correctly as well as the inventory is allocated correctly. And so that's what we really focused on, is to take these existing components in AX and make a true non-stock scenario. We even go one step further where the RFQ may get turned into a planned purchase order instead of a real purchase order, and I'll talk about why you may want to do that in just a bit. The other part of this thing that's not really shown in this diagram is everything I just said, we can do what we call item on the fly. So it's a product I don't actually sell. I don't even have a record of it in my system, but maybe I have it in a vendor catalog, or maybe it's a brand new product I've got to go source and call somebody on. We've got a process that allows me to use a proxy item to quote that and source that item, but I'm not going to turn that into a real release product in my item database until I win the quote. Very, very fancy business logic around that, because there's a lot of automation going on. As part of that story, so the key part of that story is the margin estimation and the margin and the estimated costing of that. Standard AX uses the inventory value or the item cost on the item master, depending on the type of costing methodology you have, and that's what it uses as the cost when it's calculating your estimated margin. That's probably fine for items you keep on the shelf. But for non-stock items you're going to individually source and buy only when there's a demand, it's not good enough. So what we've done, again, getting back to our plan to profit story, trying to get back to understanding where my margins are coming from, is that when I go and create that RFQ and when I go and create that PO, I want to make sure that the cost that is calculating my margin is actually specifically tied to that purchase order or that RFQ process. We also have another concept called a sourcing rule that may have an alternate vendor scenario or may even have a unique price for, say, a drop ship. We can support all of those concepts, and in our estimated cost field that we've added to the sales order line and the sales quote line, I can see what those costs are. And you'll see in this case there's a difference between my unit price and my estimated unit cost. That's because I even have visibility into discounts that are getting applied. So I know the full true cost of what that purchase product is going to be. It hasn't been actually finished purchasing yet. It's still inbound. However, I know that it's going to, I know what the cost is I should expect and what my margin is going to be based on that true cost of the order that I have coming in. So this way I have a full estimated margin story tied to the actual cost or darn good estimation of what my cost should be versus maybe an outdated cost that the inventory value may have for you. So a lot of things we've done in this non-stock scenario and really trying to bring up that estimated cost, which obviously translates into a better estimated margin. The other part of that margin story is that when my margin reaches a certain threshold, we've added the ability to put the order on hold if it violates a margin threshold. So quite a bit on managing your margins, managing your cost, and having that visibility in sales, and to make sure that you anticipate your margin ahead of time and not have your salespeople going out there and maybe cutting your margins down to get their commission, right? And that's really what this whole story is all about. One other part I want to close with here is another big scenario that we've enhanced is around plan to pay or procure to pay. A lot of boxes on this little Visio diagram here, but you'll notice everything in purple is just a configuration. Theoretically, you're going to do that once. Everything in green is something that's going to be set up to run in batch. and then the things that are blue are typically going to have some sort of user interaction. We've done quite a bit to calculate economic order quantity. We can calculate average lead time, calculate daily usage, and we can calculate a reorder point, which is kind of above and beyond safety stock. A lot of really standard inventory management calculations and practices, some of which is resided in AX and then like on the average lead time, for example, you can put a lead time in AX, but it's just quoted from your vendor. It may or may not be matched reality. We allow you to see how is my vendor performing, what's my average lead time, and you can even utilize that value in planning optionally if you want to use that instead of the published lead time. So quite a bit of extra factors that we have that can feed into planning. We don't change how planning works in AX. We think that it does actually quite a good job of figuring out what you need and when you need it. We just kind of change some of the inputs so that calculation is much more in tune with the reality on the ground. And then you'll notice a reference to a buyer's console here. And so that's kind of the cost side of this plan to profit story, right? In standard AX, it does a good job at creating planned orders. Planned orders in AX are a bit of a misnomer. They're really planned order lines. And so we've created an enhanced view of your planned purchase orders in what we call a buyer console. It allows you to have smart consolidation based on, to get you to cost-effective purchase orders. In doing that, and also to help buyers out in terms of figuring out what they need to buy and what's really the priority, we've added flags in sales for emergency orders, and then those will flow down to the planned purchase order that you can filter on. Likewise, I can actually create planned purchase orders directly from sales. And those will actually go ahead and be planned purchase orders that are approved and actually marked to that order once they get firmed. And then we also can accept an RFQ and turn that into a planned PO. And why would I want to do that? Because in the buyer console, I actually have full visibility into the pricing information that I have that are associated with my planned purchase requirements. Again, planned orders in AX and the existing views that they have in AX, they don't have any context of the pricing impact of those purchase requirements. They just make the assumption, system says you need it, you better go buy it. But we want to actually go and buy it at a reasonable cost, right? So what the buyer console is about, it's about showing you the price of those purchased goods and what that impact should be, taking into account everything that's there. Also, just kind of giving you better, quicker insights into like pegging. Standard AX, you have to kind of drill into the planned purchase order to see the pegging information. We allow you to see it all in one view. We can also see alternate inventory or inventory in other locations, so that if you want to choose to turn that purchase order into a transfer order, you can do that if you find out there's inventory at other locations. And then the last thing that we've done here that's really kind of the big thing is that we can actually search and filter on the planned purchase orders by trade agreement and by vendor using some advanced filter logic. And what I have on my screenshot here is I actually have 3 items or 3 planned orders from a particular vendor. And actually, as I checked each line here, I have a purchase multi-line discount here that's looking for a threshold. So these 2 boxes add up to a quantity of 65. If I get to 100, I'm actually going to be able to take advantage of a 5% discount that I currently have in my vendor. And that's really the power that we have here. It allows you to not only you can actually select a trade agreement, and it'll actually go and find the planned purchase orders that can take advantage of that trade agreement. So, for example, a multi-line discount for your vendor, and then you can actually, as you select the planned purchase orders, they'll tell you where you lie in relation to that. So if you actually do need to bump up a quantity just across that threshold, you can see that, have that visibility here. Very powerful tool in consolidating your purchase requirements, and the beauty of it is you're simulating that. So for example, once you get the planned orders that you've selected where you want to be, then you can put those in what we call the firm new purchase order screen. This allows me to see a summary of the actual purchase order. If I go and firm it, it'll see what the pricing and the discounts are going to be, and I can also see if I'm going to adhere to vendor minimums. Or also, maybe simulate what's going to happen if I was to use an alternate vendor if it actually sells the items that I have on that order. So this is the screen that we have that shows you basically the order summary. Before you go and click OK, it's not a firmed order yet. This is really just finding out how much is it going to actually cost me before I go and push this down the line. You also see we have this box here for vendor minimums. Standard AX doesn't have a way to say, I need to buy this particular threshold, whether it's a currency amount minimum, as I have on my screen here, maybe a quantity minimum. Regardless of the items, you're just trying to, you always buy a certain poundage from that vendor, or maybe a certain quantity. Then we can support that and actually have business logic that holds up the purchase order until you cross that agreed to vendor minimum. Likewise, you may be doing that because you're going to cross a pricing threshold, or maybe you're filling a container, or you're trying to get a certain weight. We can support that as well. So that's really the big idea behind the buyer console. It's better consolidation of your purchase requirements so you can have cost-effective orders. And then we built a lot of infrastructure so that planned orders can come out of other processes, such as RFQs, such as directly from a sales order. So if your buyers can then consolidate them to take advantage of vendor deals that you currently have in play. So those are two big scenarios, the non-stock scenario, as well as better and smarter buying of your purchase requirements. Those are two big things we've focused on in the last year. These pieces are in 2012 today, and they'll be in AX7, like I said, within the next month or two. Okay. So that's kind of the wrap-up of what I wanted to cover today. Obviously, I didn't touch everything. It's quite a large solution, and I could easily spend 3 or 4 hours demoing the whole solution if I wanted to. But I think it gave you a good understanding of where we're at, what type of scenarios we have, particularly in the distribution space, things that distributors and retailers live with every day, but sometimes AX comes up just a touch short on meeting those requirements. And when I say come up short, the foundation's there. It just doesn't have as much automation and perhaps as many hooks to different processes and pieces of information that it needs to. That's really what we've tried to accomplish here. Okay. I think at that point, with that, I will leave it. I'll leave it up to the floor here. So I'm going to look at the questions we have here. And I'll see from Keith, can you expand on the ship back order complete feature in advanced order management? Yes. So Standard AX has ship complete functionality that came in with R3. We've enhanced that a little bit in order to make sure that that you can actually define the ship complete rules by customer. And what we're talking about here is under my order management module here. Then what we've done on top of that is we've done two other things. So we're so I can say, does that ship complete logic apply to the entire order? Or what if I'm fulfilling a single order from 3 different warehouses? Maybe I want to apply that ship complete by warehouse. So I'm only going to have one shipment out of each individual warehouse. So that's something that we've added to the solution. Other part of this story is perhaps if I've got a scenario where the customer calls today, I've got a certain amount in stock, and they say, well, ship me out what you have today, and then ship me the rest when you have it. So that's where we get to a ship back order complete scenario. And so what we've done there is we've kind of piggybacked that ship complete logic. However, basically we trigger it. If I've got ship back order complete enabled, we essentially trigger it once I get a packing slip, posted in the system. Then we enforce ship complete essentially on the deliver remainder, as we call it in AX. Any other questions? I think I'm seeing all the Q&A, Jason. I think I only got one question up there.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any other questions at this time either.
And there's a few names on the list here that I recognize, so please reach out to me individually. Okay. Do we need to do it going once, going twice?
Well, we can begin wrapping up and see if anything else comes in. So just to remind folks in the audience, thanks for your attention today. There will be a quick survey that will pop up as you leave today, just to give us and to give Russell a little more feedback on today's event. We did record this event as well. We'll be making that available, so please look for an update on that too.
Yeah,
I'm not seeing any other questions, Russ?
I'm not, and I think, Jason, we're going to have a follow-up event, I think in December, to hit basically different time zones, I believe is what we're targeting.
Right, so in December there is another event planned.
All right, so Keith says, once the sales pack slip is posted, are you saying then that just the deliver remainder on the sales order set? That's correct. That's exactly it. Yeah. And again, that can be either by warehouse or by the entire order quantity.
All right. Well, Russ, should we end it there?
I believe we can.
Okay. Well, don't hesitate to, as Russell said, reach out with additional questions. And we'd like to thank you all for your time. Russell, thank you as well for taking the time today.
Thank you for the opportunity, Jason. Thanks again, everyone, for your attention,
All right.
and please reach out to us if you'd like to learn more.
All right. And with that, we will conclude today's event. Have a great day, everyone.
All right. Thank you.